Hello reviewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about Nikon Z5 or Z5. Let's look into it. Well, you have to understand this. Nikon Z series is no longer clean. It has APS-C, is basically camera body and lenses also. So you have to be mindful before you buy Z series because you may find up like millimeter 828 millimeter and all that jazz. You may end up buying a APS-C system. So be mindful of that. Now, it's not like Canon where it's like R simply means full frame as of now. So Nikon released Z5. It's a full frame. That is a critical aspect. Full frame mirrorless camera, quite awesome. Now pricing wise, this is the most interesting aspect of this. This is $1,400. Now some people might say it's a bit high, but that's up to you. And it's around, in Indian price, it should be around 1.14 lakhs rupees. So not super expensive camera. For specifically for full frame, it's quite good. Now it's a 24 megapixels, so it's not like megapixel beast or something like that. However, it does have IBIS. Why IBIS is important? Simply because you can take into consideration, let's say Sony, not Sony, Canon RP, it does not have IBIS. So 24 megapixel with IBIS at this price range, kind of interesting. Now, as of me making this video, this should be available in India around August 27, basically a few days from now, in Indian markets. Same will apply abroad also. Now, what is the unique selling point of such a camera? Well, it's a good starter camera. Basically, imagine it this way. Your investment is always in the lenses because camera body keeps swapping, but you could have a scenario where you have a lens that is like 20 years old. And I'm not exaggerating. There are many actual living photographers who have equipments that are that old. Lens-wise. Body-wise, they keep changing as quickly as 3, 5 years or 8 years maximum. So reality is body is swappable part. So this sort of camera is generally classified as good enough where you can invest in your early starting money on lenses, so you get truly high quality, and body you upgrade once you have enough funds. So this is what they are targeting on, like a start camera. It's like, hey, I'm in the market, I want something full frame, I want something professional, which system should I invest in? This is like targeted for those kind of audience. Now this has dual card slot, UHS-2. Now this was a very critical mistake in Nikon series, specifically for their Nikon Z7. Basically it was expensive camera, so then why the heck it did not have dual card slot? Now you may say, I never had a card failure. Again, it's something like insurance, and if you are dealing with something that can only happen once, let's say a wedding or sports kind of event, you have to have redundancy. It's not something that you can YOLO around. Think of it this way: servers are the most important system on this planet in terms of intellectual property wise, and banking, financials, everything, and yet they have the highest quality hard drives available. Like they have mean time between failure that are 10 years mean time between failure, and yet still they have like 2-3 redundancy. There is a simple reality of it. One is always one point of failure. You have to, there is some chance that if something bad happens, you have at least one backup. So having dual card slot, which Nikon knows, that's why 800D, 500D, and there are many professional, like all, you go to Nikon website, professional camera, all the cameras will have dual card slot. So there is a reason for that. Not having that in their expensive models, that was like bit oopsie. So they fixed that problem. They have also fixed the minor annoyances that even though this camera, this is like early done was with Fuji and Panasonic. They did it quite well, where they were like, okay, we're gonna give you USB-C and it's gonna have power delivery. That means you can actually power the camera using USB-C power delivery standard. If you have a power bank or power adapter, you're gonna be YOLO. So they have fixed that also, and it has the Nikon's latest autofocus, so to say. Now you have to be mindful when Sony was releasing mirrorless camera, their autofocus was meh at best, but over the years they polished it to such a point they became industry leading. And then Canon caught up quite quickly because their dual pixel autofocus hardware was quite good. They had to polish it a bit, and now they are at a point where they are like really good, and some people might say even better than Sony in bird photography scenario. Not anything else, but in bird photography you may find it a bit better. But Nikon is not looked at the same way, because when Z series came out, the autofocus was underperforming. It was underperforming compared to Nikon's DSLR. So people were like, what the hell? So over time, as in like 1 year ago, they kept updating the firmware, and right now the firmware is at version 3, and at this point in time autofocus is good. At this point, if you're not seeing side by side from Nikon to Sony to Canon, you will be happy with it. You won't be in a scenario, hey dude, I had a DSLR, it was better. That will no longer happen. So they have that modern autofocus built into it. Again, latest camera, so latest firmware version also, so you will not be disappointed, let's just say, with the autofocus system. So it's a very good starter camera. It's like you just buy and you go. So who is this targeted? Like, what is the target audience? Well, bridge. This kind of camera is classified as a bridge camera. Think of it this way. Many serious professional photography generally requires multiple equipments. One of those equipment is a backup camera. Again, if you are very rich, you will have same camera as a backup camera. Basically, let's say in case of Canon, you have R5 as your main camera and R5 as a backup camera. So in case your primary R5 dies, you have backup. Or sports photography people do this, wedding photography people do this. This is a kind of common thing to do. You have your main system and you have a backup system. But given the fact that photographers are generally not known for swimming in money, most camera have like one main investment, secondary investment that is not too bad. For example, in case of Sony system, it would be like Sony A7S, not A7, basically A7R Mark IV would be your main wedding camera, and A7 Mark III would be your backup camera. So you will still be full frame. You do not want to swap lenses mid shooting, so you will still would be the exact same thing, but your quality will go down. But you will have something in case your primary camera dies. This is a common trend, and I used to have friends who was dealing with a wedding kind of scenario. They literally had, even though there were only 5 people doing the shooting, they had 8 cameras just to make sure. Again, generally they keep their old camera so as a backup in case main dies, or sometimes changing battery takes too long. They're like, so in those sort of scenario, having a cheap yet high quality camera is a very unique proposition. So this is a big sort of camera. However, you have to understand Nikon is still making a lot of money from their DSLR, and the DSLRs are quite good. However, DSLRs are kind of showing their age, specifically with video, and because photography is catching up in terms of mobile phone, people are going more and more into video to differentiate. So you may be like, hey, I have Canon's, basically Canon, I'm saying Nikon D850, and it's quite good, awesome. No, you will not have a complaint with this camera in terms of photography. However, in video, you're like, it's a bit lacking, let's just put it that way. So you may be like, hey, I want to try what Nikon has to offer. Because the DSLR lens will work on mirrorless, you don't have to buy new lenses. So in those sort of scenario, if you ask, hey, pay me $2,500 for that experiment, we're like, that's a bit too high, man. And not to mention the higher end models of Nikon itself does not have dual card slot, so you cannot take it seriously. So this camera would be like, hey, I can have this camera as just a video camera if all else fails, and if it does not, I could try out Nikon's system. So it's a bridge kind of scenario where you can use this as a B cam, or you can have this like, hey, I have a lot of investment in Nikon. You're not gonna switch, because again, you're gonna go broke if you even dare to try that. So in those sort of scenario, having this mirrorless as a trial run would be very wise. However, you have to be mindful, this is not a flagship camera. It has like 4.5 frame per second, which is closer to what I have in Canon 800D, and non-BSI sensor. Now, this is a very critical aspect. Nikon has been always known for high image quality. Nobody talks about their video performance, but their image quality is unparalleled. Basically, if you can double blind people, it's like, you don't know which camera you talked about, who took the photo, and you don't know anything about anything. Most of the time people will choose Nikon photographs because it's genuinely good, like in terms of dynamic range, in terms of ISO performance, genuinely good. However, in this point in time, releasing a non-BSI sensor, that's like, it's a bit odd. It's a bit odd. Now again, does not mean it's gonna be complete garbage, because you have two things to control: ISO or color reproduction, so to say. You improve your what we classify as analog to digital converter, which is actually taking your electrical signal from your silicon and converting digital data. That has to be improved so you get better performance, or you improve the silicon, exact silicon itself. Now there has not been too much improvement in silicon. The only improvement in silicon in terms of design that happened is BSI and non-BSI. That was a big jump. Like you can like, whoa, nothing to like, whoa. So going back to that unwhopped period, that's kind of odd. And especially in this time, 2020, so that's kind of odd. And they have crop in 4K, which is like odd, given the fact their higher end system does not have this. It's like, it's not like Canon. They when they released Z5 and Z6, Z6 and Z7, they did not had they had full width 4K, which was quite awesome. And people who were utilizing basically manual focus, they got very good system out of it, because it did had 10-bit output, which only now Sony can do. So it was quite awesome. So crippling that kind of here, or it may be just because of the cheap processor it has, it simply cannot do that. But that 30-minute recording limit, I'm like, why? This pandemic showed everybody is doing like multiple hour long podcast, teleconference. This camera can act as a webcam with a software in Windows, not in Apple, in Windows as of now. So that 30-minute recording limit is like kind of lame, but you can understand it's a very good B cam. It's a very good, hey, I have a lot of investment in Nikon glass and DSLRs and all that. I can try this on the side without going bankrupt. So that kind of system. Now, should you buy this camera? Well, I would urge wait, because Nikon has been spotted, like many people who are tracking the price over long periods of time, they are noticing Nikon release a camera much overpriced, and they within as quickly as 5 or 6 months they release the price, reduce the price to significant margin. They're like 30% reduce or 40% reduce. So you have to be mindful of this, apply some brakes right now. And then you have to understand this is kind of odd, because this camera released at the exact same time as Sony A7S Mark III, exact same time as Canon R5 and all that jazz. Somehow it was like it swept under the radar, because Nikon did not release what we call pre-production setups to enough people. Like very few people got this their camera on their hands, so to say. So hands-on review right now on YouTube is like very little, like one or two. At the time of me making this video, only few were found. So I would urge you to wait for that, because I'm seriously worried about that image ISO performance. It won't be like on mobile computer screen, you may not notice it too much, but if you download the raw file, you may find it's like, dude, it could have been better. So apply brakes and be mindful of that. And then I would say, if dual card slot is not very important to you, it's like, dude, I can deal with it, like this it's a hobby, I do not need that, then you can look into Canon RP, surprisingly good for surprisingly low price. And then wait for Sony A5, which should be coming out by 1 or 2 weeks from now. So I would apply brakes, wait for it. And if you're like, dude, I want a whole system, I'm completely new, I want a whole new system, are there better options? Well, yes, if you want Canon system, you have Canon R6, which is genuinely good, except the video performance, but it is a genuinely good system with surprisingly good lens selection. And then you have Sony A7 Mark III. Again, these two are surprisingly close to price wise, specifically Sony A7 Mark III. And A7 Mark III has better autofocus performance in terms of burst rate. It can do much higher sustained burst rate. And lens selection, be mindful, Nikon does not have too many lenses. I'm talking about native lenses, and this is one thing that I keep urging you all: select the goddamn lens first. Do not ask like which camera to buy, which lens to buy. Lens is the eye to the world. If you know yourself, if you know which lenses you want, then select the price, because you may be like, hey, I bought Nikon. Nikon's 50mm is like $600, and Sony's, even Canon's 50mm, let's say $300. You'll be like, wow, all the money you saved in the cheap camera body, poof. So be mindful, select the damn lens, and I mean exact lens. Don't be like 70-200. No, this exact model I want, this exact lens I want, be like that. And another aspect that I have paid close attention to is that there are three camera companies right now that are big: Sony, Nikon and Canon. And Nikon and Canon both are going in red. And if I compare Nikon to Canon, Nikon is in really bad situation. As of me making this video, their Japanese value is around 835. It's very low, like it's really low. And I'm talking about 5 years, not 1 year, not 2 years, 5 years, because again Google has that. And I double checked with from 2000 now onwards, they are really not doing well. And I mean Nikon Corporation, not just imaging division, they have multiple other divisions. Those are not printing money. And if this trend downward trends, which is like really low, they're like less than 1,000 Japanese yen, so it's not looking very bright. If this continues, they could literally go out like how Olympus went, is like, bro, I can't handle this, just sell it to someone else. So I would advise brakes. And Nikon really did not do quite well in terms of their first mirrorless camera. They were trolling the world and the world trolled them. So if they had came out like all in, at least with dual card slot, at least photographers would have been like, dude, Nikon came a perfectly good photography system. Heck, even videographer would have been happy, because it was like doing full frame video system and all that jazz, and it had 10-bit output. So they had a lot of advantage, but just because of that simple flaw of not having dual card slot, they limited their own potential. And again, you can't keep pissing off people for very long amount of time. Only Apple can do that. So this was my presentation on Nikon series Z5 camera. Hopefully you liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me excess disappointment, and please leave a comment, because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.